Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm having a technical issue. I updated my OBS and my pre-roll's acting funny. That sounds like something I should see a doctor about. But hey, we're live, and that's what matters, right? I am here today to make a character for They Came From Classified. If you are unaware, there is currently a Kickstarter running for a double feature of They Came From Classified and They Came From the Cyclops' Cave. That's over at Kickstarter. There's 8 days left. We have funded both books, so that's awesome news. And we've unlocked a couple of stretch goals. Most recently and notably, They Came From the Cyclops' Cave director's screen, which is super exciting and cool. So the next stretch goal up is a director's screen for They Came From Classified, which we are just around $700 or so from unlocking. So that would be a cool add-on. If you have backed so far already, consider adding on the director's screen for Cyclops' Cave, because that helps push us towards our total. Gets you an awesome director's screen. That's a very handy reference to have. I try to keep one open on my computer all the time when I'm running. I need to get better about it because they are such a good reference. And yeah, hopefully help push us over to the next stretch goal. So while I am putting this together, if anyone hops in the chat and wants to involve themselves in the process, figure out some ideas, we can do this collectively. But in the meantime, I'm going to start off the character creation chapters of They Came From, like most story path games. Well, before I get too far, in the event that you're unaware of what They Came From Classified is, They Came From Classified is a game of cinematic espionage inspired by spy film and spy television. This can be everything from the Bourne Identity to James Bond to Get Smart and Inspector Gadget, really. I mean, you can really, with all the They Came From games, you can really dial it in to sort of fit the vibe you're going for your game. So it relies on the story path system, which is also used in They Came From Beneath the Sea, They Came From Beyond the Grave, as well as Scion, Trinity, Dystopia Rising Evolution. So it's a robust and well-tested system at this point. It's been around in quite a few different iterations, and it's really fun. It's very skill-driven and very narrative-driven. The idea being that the heroes of the story are generally very competent and generally have cool abilities that vary from game to game. And the They Came From line, these abilities tend to reflect the genre of media that the characters are in, right? Because when you're running a game of They Came From Classified, you are effectively creating a film or a television series that these characters are inhabiting. So there's a lot of fun ways they do that. Cinematics is one of the ways that they do that, which are sort of a group asset that can be played using a currency called rewrites that you acquire throughout the game. And those can do things like have impact on the set that you're on, or have impact on your character's personal abilities, possibly calling in a stuntman to take an injury for you, things along those lines. There's a lot of fun stuff in the cinematics. Now, full disclosure, I have just been very busy and not gotten a chance to dig too deeply into Classified yet, so this is going to be a fun exploration for all parties concerned. I am looking forward to getting into this. I've been wanting to do this. I wanted to do this last week, but I had some responsibilities crop up that got in the way. So we're just going to hop on sort of randomly and get it knocked out. So, character creation. The character creation at a glance section of the chapter gives you a very succinct 7-step process for creating a character. So step 1 is decide on an overall concept. Choose 2 short-term aspirations and 1 long-term aspiration. Aspirations are the things that you want your character to achieve. Short-terms generally are something that can be achieved in the span of a session, whereas long-terms are more of like the span of a campaign. I think it's very cool that StoryPath suggests starting there with character creation, because it helps you really sort of identify who this person is that you're building. So I think we will start there as well with this one. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm a big fan of the Bourne books. Not so much the films, in that I only saw the first one. And because I was younger and a little more, I guess, attached to the novels, I didn't like the direction they went, so I never watched the other ones. I need to go back and correct that, because it was a fine movie. I just was being a snotty snob about it. So, having said all that, I think we're going to make a character that's inspired by Jason Bourne. So, our short-term aspirations, our first is going to be let's see. Use my mysterious combat skills. So, like, if you're unfamiliar with the concept of Jason Bourne, he sort of wakes up without a memory at some point, but is able to use all these incredible spy abilities and just is mysteriously like kick-ass and has to sort of solve the mystery as to why and who he is and whatnot. So we're going to play on that a little bit. We're going to have an agent who's maybe a bit of an amnesiac. I think that'll be fun. So first short-term aspiration is going to be to use my mysterious combat skills. The second short-term aspiration will be to, let's say, convince someone of my plight, right? So because the claim of amnesia is a bit of a sell, right? It's a bit of a hard thing to convince people that you're actually going through, right? It's a lot to ask, to believe I'm a blank slate. No one knows. I know nothing about my past. So that's something that's likely to run into some resistance. Gives a good opportunity for a short-term aspiration. I do also want to point out that normally character creation is done either as a group or in communication with your group. And aspirations are also meant for the other players to know and for the director to know, because these are the milestones that you want to push the story toward. So the other players being aware of what your aspirations are helps them help you get to that point, if that makes sense. So we have our 2 short terms: use my mysterious combat skills and convince someone of my plight. And for long term, let's just say regain my memory, right? It seems like a good, easy, long-term aspiration for an amnesiac. I would want to know who I was, I think. So being through the aspirations, the second step is paths. We choose our archetype path and assign 4 related skills, choose our origin path and assign 4 related skills, and choose our cover path and assign 4 related skills. Of those assigned skills, you assign 3 dots to the skills in the archetype path, 3 dots to the skills in the origin path, and 3 skill dots in the cover path. So for each path, we will be getting 4 skills that we attach to that path, and then 3 dots to spend among the skills of the path. And the way paths work is they're kind of like definitions of who your character is and what they do effectively, right? So in this case, the archetype path is sort of the spy archetype that you belong to. We'll go over those in a second. The origin path is where you come from, and your cover path is a new addition that came from Classified. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of scroll down through this and look and see what cover paths are explained as. So it says here in the text, which you can get access to if you back the Kickstarter for as little as $5. It says cover paths detail your character's cover, a career or occupation that justifies why they're walking around in restricted areas or eavesdropping on an important meeting. They also describe their life outside the job, like the expertise they've developed to keep away suspicion. Most importantly, cover paths give your character connections with people outside of the job, like their fellow coworkers, certain members of their family, so on and so forth. So the people that you care for. So that's very interesting. It's kind of a cool spin on it, because this does replace like your ambition or your dark agenda, depending on what other games that they came from you might be familiar with, if at all. So this kind of allows you to focus on things that are just outside of the basic umbrella of spying, which is cool. I like that decision a lot. One of the things I do want to just point out is that the design choices in They Came from the Cyclops' Cave and They Came from Classified are extremely evocative. Not that they're not in the other They Came From games, but these are the newest iteration of They Came From. They've had the most opportunity for refinement, and they provide the most opportunity for sort of exploration. In case you missed the actual play I ran over at the Onyx Path channel last week for They Came from the Cyclops' Cave, it was just incredibly fun, and we were able to take that system, which is sort of the core presentation is cinematic fantasy, Harryhausen films, things like that. But we were very easily able to generate more of like a Saturday morning cartoon vibe with it, which I thought was a lot of fun. Probably the best time I've had role-playing since I was a child. So definitely check that one out if you haven't yet. So getting back to our paths. For our archetypes, we have 5 playable archetypes added and classified. We have the Adventurer, which is basically like the talented amateurs whose variety of improvisational expertise lands them inadvertent jobs as sidekicks to the agency's spies. They have kind of like a tendency toward like being a bit of an adrenaline junkie. So that's kind of a cool aspect. And they dive into the action, car chases, cockpit battles, anything that gets the heart rate up. So next up, we have the Detective. The Detective, basically, they are investigators. They kind of steer into that general sort of trope of kind of your grizzled detective, your streetwise, says they're disheveled with coffee on their teeth and cigarettes in their breath, late nights hunched over desks covered in dossiers, examining corkboards of evidence, interlinked by colorful strings, manifest this sort of appearance, if not demands it. To the detective, dressing up is synonymous with throwing on a brown hat and a similarly bland yet absurdly hefty jacket with many interior pockets. So really kind of like you're almost like a noir detective, like you might think of, like a Mickey Spillane character. So that's kind of cool. Our next is the Operative. So this is the agency's most lethal weapon behind enemy lines, is also its most snazzy. Full collected just the right amount of cocky, operatives are unmatched at playing the parts of infiltrator, double agent, and combatant. So this is kind of like this is your James Bond, this is your Jason Bourne, this is your lead spy type. We have the Provocateur. And the Provocateur is sort of this master of disguise, deceiver, almost illusionist, one might say, with a lot of social acumen, who can manipulate people, who can get into places they shouldn't be able to get into. A seducer or seductress would fall under this, but so would like a negotiator, or so would just like an actor, a disguise master. So that would be your Provocateur. And then we have the Quartermaster. And the Quartermaster is sort of an inventor, hacker, creator, someone who builds gadgets, employs gadgets, instructs on the use of gadgets, things along those lines. So those are our options here for our archetype. As we discussed in the beginning, because I'm leaning into my love of Jason Bourne, I think we're going to go straight up operative with this fellow. So concept is going to be amnesiac combat master. Sound like a good idea for concept? Sound about right? Archetype is going to be the operative. And we just take that and pop it down here in our archetype path. So as we mentioned before, these each get a selection of 4 skills. They came from one of the things they do that's very cool, separates it a little bit from some of the other story path games, is rather than just giving you like a straight up, like, here are the skills that you get for this path, they give you some recommended skills and a couple of other additional options. Now, the recommended skills for the operative are athletics, aim, enigmas, and pilot, which I think, and it says feel free to change your operative's athletics skill to culture if they've spent the last 3 years spying on a Peruvian science experiment, for example. But I think we're just going to go with those straight-up skills. So because that is from the archetype, I'm going to make a little A on the skill line of each of these character sheets. And this editable character sheet is available for backers. Anybody who backs the Kickstarter will be able to download a copy of this sheet so you can use it at your own table, which is very cool. Not always the case with a Kickstarter. Mike Cheney, our graphics sort of guru, put these together as kind of a special treat for us. So Mad thanks to Mike for doing that. Okay, so we've got athletics. Let's put a little A in there so we know that this is an archetype skill. Aim, of course. Enigmas. And pilot. Okay, so the next path we need to select is going to be our origin path. So the origin paths describe an agent's past. We have an old hand. You've been at this for a long time, maybe even longer than you can remember. That's funny. Might work out. The suggested skills are command, empathy, integrity, persuasion. So this is sort of like a veteran spy, right? So maybe we're not going to go that route. Let's see. Bourne for this is the second origin option. You're a fresh recruit. Even now you're considered an agent's agent. On top of that, you come from storied origins. Perhaps you're the top graduate of a military academy, so on and so forth. The suggested skills with that come with athletics, culture, humanities, and persuasion. Defector, that might be kind of a cool thing, like you left one of the villainous organizations or some other sort of antagonistic spy organization to join the agency. The skills that go along with that are empathy, enigmas, integrity, and larceny. Stumbled into it. You're not supposed to be here, and that's exactly why you are here. Caught in a firefight between agents. You just got sort of got caught up in this mess. You are, Will Smith in Enemy of the State. All right, you just got pulled into this world. The greater mystery. There's a question burning within you, and even when you're schmoozing behind enemy lines and showing off your flawless firearm precision, it consumes your waking hours. That could be cool, because again, we get into the missing memories, the missing background. But we also have the program. Some time ago, you volunteered or were volunteered for a special experiment, something the agency only referred to as the program. You're still not sure what they did to you exactly. Perhaps they gave you a mysterious cocktail. Maybe they installed cutting-edge technology to make you stronger than 10 men. So this gives you the skills aim, close combat, medicine, pilot. Certainly gives us an explanation for the amnesia. So I think we're going to go with the program. The final one is thrill seeker, which again ties back into kind of the adventure type and gives you athletics, larceny, pilot, and survival. So we're going to go ahead and I think we're going to go with the program for our origin path. And that sounds very Bourne-y. Oh, and by the way, make sure you fill in that little dot there on your character sheets. And second, if I can correct thing. Do not like the way that those fields are showing, so I'm going to try to fix that real quick. Bear with me for one moment if you don't mind. Okay, we're gonna have to roll with it as it stands for the moment, and I apologize for the noise. Let me kill my phone. Okay. So we are going with the program for the origin. And for our cover, let's go. We have, let's get the skills from our origin. Sorry, I got distracted and it threw my whole jam. So, the program suggested skills are aim. So, as this is our origin, we're going to put a O up here so that we keep track of where these came from. Aim, close combat. I suspect we'll be buying some of that. Medicine could come in handy. And pilot. Absolutely good to go there. All right. So, going back to our cover path, we have athlete. You live in the guise of a professional athlete. Skills being aim, athletics, close combat, culture. Actor, which could be cool, but this is a traditional sense of actor. This is like you have some notoriety. You've worked on stage or screen. Consultant, paid expert on many topics, which makes your cover immensely flexible. Diplomat, which is like an office worker in an embassy, government state diplomat. You're working with state secrets as part of your cover. Journalist, which is, again, self-explanatory. You work in print media, television media, things along those lines, which gives you access to what's happening in the world and lets you, maybe kill some stories or things along those lines. Skills associated with that are athletics, empathy, enigmas, and larceny. You have the scientist, which your lab coat is your authority and your weapon. Skills of enigmas, medicine, science, and technology. And you have the student, which says, not many people think about it, but university campuses are some of the best places to hide government, military, and state secrets. So that's kind of cool. Another interesting little note here is that and the skills for student are culture, humanities, integrity, and persuasion. There's a little note here that you can, about burning covers and blowing your cover, which is very cool, and has like a mechanical weight to having your cover blown, which I think is a nice little twist on the basic system for these paths. It requires you to establish a new cover. That's a nice little value add there. I think for a cover path, and again, if you happen to be in the chat and you have some suggestions or ideas, feel free to sound off. But I think we are going to go with athlete for the cover path, with the idea that maybe when this person regains their consciousness, that will be the cover that they're under. So when we meet them, maybe they're they wake up one day in a, like a gym in a bad neighborhood, maybe training to box, like a little bit, you bring in a little bit of Rocky, right? That's fun. That's cinematic. So let's go with athlete for the cover. And that will give us, for our skills, we'll have aim, athletics, close combat, and culture. So we'll put C for cover. Aim, athletics, close combat, and culture. All right. So now that those have been established, we spend our points, as we discussed earlier. So you'll have 3 points for each path. The way I like to do it is just go through, especially if I have something that has multiple paths on it, aim. So I can spend 1 point from each of my paths on aim. There we go. Our aim is now a 3. And I apologize if those dots aren't reading so well. Having a view issue. But yeah, so we're aim of 3. That also leaves us 2 more points to spend in each of our paths. So we know that athletics has 2 paths, so let's spend 1 from each of those 2 paths. Now we have used up 2 dots of our archetype path, 2 dots of our cover path, and 1 dot of our origin. So we're going to use another dot of our origin path to cover the close combat, bringing us up to 2 dots of origin used. Use the last dot of our cover path to bring up that close combat. So now we have 1 more dot left in the origin path. And I think that medicine could be where we go with it, right? A couple reasons. One, an independent agent is probably accustomed to patching themselves up a little bit in the field, so they probably have some basic first aid knowledge. 2, again, with the idea of like not knowing what you know, I think it's compelling that, like, you know, if the character or one of the character's allies were to become injured, and then he suddenly is like, oh, all we got to do is set this bone, and you know, how do you know that? I have no idea. So that's kind of neat. Neat little skill that is likely to come up in an action-oriented adventure, right? So once those skill points are spent, let's go back to our character creation master list here. Now that we've spent those skills, we get 6 additional dots to spend on any skills that we choose. So since we're looking at, we've got aim is now at a 3, athletics and close combat are at a 2, and medicine is at a 1. So I think we definitely want to bring up his close combat. He's supposed to be like a big combat specialist, right? So that's 1 point in close combat, leaving us with 5. Let's bring up that athletics, so that leaves us with 4. I think he should have some puzzle solving abilities, right? So let's drop 2 dots in enigmas, so that's 3, 2. And in some integrity. He's not going to fold easily. He's going to face some opposition in trying to find the answers he's looking for. So in order to facilitate that, let's give him an integrity of 2. So once those 6 points are spent, you should have a total of 15 dots in skills. Let's do a quick count to make sure our numbers are right. For those of us who are terrible at math, this is a vital step. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. You see I've missed 1. So we've got did I not spend all of my archetype skills. So we'll pop that last archetype skill into enigmas, leaving that at 2. And then we'll put 1 more dot over into pilot so that he can operate some vehicles, right? So that is handled. Now we have our 15 dots in skills. Once that is done, we go down to our attributes. Each attribute starts with a single free dot, which you can see is filled out on the sheet. we assign our primary, secondary, and tertiary arenas. So you'll see on the sheet there's these boxed off areas that run vertically. These are your arenas. So you have your mental arena, your physical arena, and your social arena. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to say physical is going to be primary for this particular agent. And so that will get 6 dots in it. We're just going to go great even distribution of putting 2 additional dots in each. That first dot is free. Next up, we're going to go mental. And we're going to put that slight emphasis. So 1 dot in each. We'll put a slight emphasis on cunning. He is a quick thinker. And then the last is 2. So let's do manipulation and composure, right? He's okay at keeping his head. He's okay at telling some lies. Not great, like, with general presence. Just, like, overall, like, not a very assuming and commanding individual. Kind of looks like an everyman, maybe. Somebody you would never mark for a spy. Now that those attributes have been spent, we get to assign our favored approach, which would be force, finesse, or resilience. And these are these stripes that run horizontally. These cover what sort of method your character prefers to solve problems with, right? So force being you like to push your way through the problem, you like to exhibit a certain level of dominance over the problem. Finesse is more quick or careful thinking, more quick or careful application, and resilience is just raw toughness, just you soldier through. I think this character is probably going to lean into finesse. So we're going to go ahead and mark that with an X. And we're going to go ahead and put 1 extra dot in each of the attributes in our favored approach. So that brings our cunning to a 4, our dexterity to a 4, and our manipulation to a 3. Once that is done, we get 1 free dot to put in any attribute. I personally think that I like the idea of the resolve and the composure remaining low, especially because, like, at the early stage of this story, this character is not calm. They are kind of terrified by what they're going through, and that's going to put them under kind of an ongoing level of stress that maybe is reflected in those lower resilience traits. But I think they should be able to absolutely just take an ass whipping. So we're going to put that extra dot into stamina. So now we're looking at final attribute count of intellect 2, cunning 4, resolve 2, might 3, dexterity 4, stamina 4, presence of 1, manipulation of 3, and composure of 2. And that completes our attributes. Now we get into the real fun stuff, trademarks. Trademarks are tied to your archetypes, and they're, for lack of a better term, they're the powers or the special abilities that your archetype affords you. In some games, some of they came from games, trademarks are a bit more on the nose, a bit more played for comedy, and they can also range into just being kind of bombastic and over the top, or they can be just very sort of simple adds to the system. It all really kind of depends on which ones you choose and on the flavor you're going for. So when you're picking your trademarks, you get 2 from your Oh, I'm sorry. I got confused as I got distracted. Your trademarks are like specialties. They're like certain things about a skill or an attribute that you are particularly good at. And each archetype lists some suggested ones. You get 2 from your archetype, and or each path lists some. I apologize. You get 2 from your archetype, 1 from your origin, and 1 from your cover. Let's go through and pick those up. Bear with me for just a moment. Okay. Sorry about that. Just needed to recollect myself for a moment because I had some distraction. Okay, so getting into our archetypes or our paths as an operative, some of our suggested trademarks. Again, kind of these specialties. You have, do you prefer the 9mm or the 9-iron? Which you can attach that to the recommended attachments are aim, athletics for skills, or dexterity for an attribute. Each time you select a trademark, you will attach it to one of those traits, either a skill or an attribute. And if you roll that attached trait and your trademark applies, you may choose to take a bonus to that roll. You can only do that once per story. But when you do, that opens you up for the possibility of directorial control. There's a lot of fun stuff, a lot of bonuses that come along with it. So we have, do you prefer the 9mm or the 9-iron? If you're not cheating, are you really trying? Which goes to empathy, enigmas, or manipulation. I studied foreign languages at Oxford, which goes to humanities, survival, or intellect. If you can't find a door, make one, which goes to close combat, larceny, might. And I prefer embracing the deployment zone, which goes to cultures, humanities, or composure. So I think for this operative, we're going to go with if you can't find a door, make one. No, you know what? Let's go with, do you prefer the 9mm or the 9-iron? And let's attach that to dexterity. And I think the reasoning for that is going to be that this agent has been trained to be lethal with anything. And that may be even part of how they discover these mysterious combat skills. Like they take a pen and stab someone in the neck with it, you know? Thank you, chat. I am creating a character for demonstration purposes, but also just to help Monday. Gilbert with Rolling Nomads is going to be running an actual play of They Came From Classified and needs some pre-generated characters. So this character, as well as a couple more that I'll make off screen, are going to be going over to Gilbert, and then you'll get to see them in play. So this one I'm just leaning on because I happen to enjoy the Bourne books. I'm kind of creating like a Jason Bourne-inspired character. But having said that, though, if anyone in the chat has any recommendations, ideas, things you want to shout out, please do shout out. And also, good to see you here, Studio. Thank you for popping in. So right now we're just getting into trademarks. We've got our first archetype trademark, which is, do you prefer the 9mm or the 9-iron? And I think, again, I think there's kind of, let's go with, if you're not cheating, are you really trying? And let's tie that to manipulation. right? Because this character is absolutely going to disregard rules or guidelines that maybe get in the way. Time to say goodnight is a fun one for close combat. That is true. So we've got our 2 trademarks for the archetype path. So we get 1 from origin and 1 from cover. So with the origin path being the program, bring that up right quick. Bear with me for a moment while I do some searching. Okay. Some of the example trademarks that it lists there are cat-like reflexes, fuzzy memories. I have the technology, the old me, and uncanny senses. Which, again, all this sounds like super appropriate. Let's do cat-like reflexes, and let's tie that to athletic. I think that's fitting. And then, lastly, we have our cover path. And we went with athlete. As we discussed before, the suggested trademarks in here are group hustle, I can do this all day, 1 perfect shot, playing defense, and there's my opening. I think we are going to grab I can do this all day and throw it on stamina, because as we discussed just a few moments ago, our character can take an ass beating. Sound fair? I think so. So, trademarks have been addressed. Our next step in the character creation process is relationships and connections. So, relationships are determined with the rest of the party. Since we don't know who the rest of the party is going to be yet, we're just going to put in some placeholder numbers. And effectively what it boils down to is you have relationships that are set at values of, I believe it's 3, 2, and 1, but let me double check here. It really depends on the number of players, right? So if you have 4 players in the game, for example, you'll have 1 relationship at level 1, 1 relationship at level 2, and 1 relationship at level 3. And you get to determine like what the nature of that relationship is. So it could be a rivalry, could be a love interest, could be a jealousy thing, or could be a respect. And you kind of pick a word to attach that relationship to, and another player character at the table to attach that relationship. So we're just going to note, I do know that the game I'm making this for has 3 characters, so we're going to just do character 1 at 1, character 2 at 2, and character 3 at 3. And so as we get into, as I build that whole group out later on for Gilbert's game, I will assign those accordingly. So that part's handled. Now getting into connections, each one of your paths provides 1 connection. Each connection can be one of the following 3 forms, which is access, gives you connections to a special place, contact, which are connections to a single person, and organization, which are connections to a group or team of like-minded people. So I think because this person is an agent, but they have lost their memories, as we discussed, they are like a amateur or low-level professional boxer in their cover anyway. So I think we should give access connection will be the gym. And we'll say inner city gymnasium. They can get into the gym anytime they want, theoretically. Contact connection, a single person tied to the bath. And that access is going to be connected to their cover, right? So contact connection, a single person tied to your path. You can call on this person for help. So maybe we say their origin is the program and their contact connection will be a mysterious benefactor reached by burner phone. So maybe when they wake up, the only thing that they can find on their person is one single phone number. They call that phone number. It's a benefactor who refuses to identify themselves but wants to help, and provides like a series of burner numbers. You can have kind of like the ongoing, you can play it for drama where they're like, this is a very serious thing that they're very concerned about, or you can play it for laughs where it's almost more like, Inspector Gadget getting his assignments, like, you throw in some, this message will self-destruct in 10 seconds if you want to really be steering into the comedy. So those are some options that you have just off of that contact. And then for the organization connection, we're going to tie it to the operative. We're going to say, because he's going to have a hard time pulling in contacts from the agency. Or maybe he doesn't. Maybe we just say that it's going to be, let's say, agency brass, right? Because they have kind of a love-hate relationship, you might say, right? Because the brass, maybe they think that this character is a bit of a loose cannon and needs to be brought in or needs to be somehow addressed for their, the memory issues they're having and whatnot. But by the same token, they're also extremely valuable. So they do want to support them. So there's kind of like, well, yes, I can tap this, but kind of a vibe to it, which is a cool bit of, I guess, potential drama, right? It gives you an opportunity to explore that dynamic a little bit in a fun way. So connections are handled, trademarks are handled. That brings us on our next step of character creation. We have our final touches. We get 2 tropes from our character archetype and an additional single trope from any of the 4 remaining archetypes. This was where I got confused and sidetracked. And the thing that confused me earlier, nothing to be concerned about, but it is awful news. I just saw that apparently my wife messaged me and told me that apparently Bruce Willis is retiring from acting due to some brain damage. So that's a sad piece of news to receive. Bummer. So as I was saying before, I had gotten confused and interrupted before I was talking about trademarks. I really meant tropes. Tropes are where your powers come in, and those are the things that are kind of like, they can be more fantastical. Each game does a very good job of using tropes to really bridge the gap between like what the skills and the attributes do and like the genre of film. So these are going to be some exciting things to dive into. And we get 2 from the archetype, which is operative, and then 1 from any other archetype. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the archetypes are, or the tropes are for the operative archetype. A moment as I dig through. Here we go. Okay, so we have the big red phone. Once per story, you can open a briefcase, metro locker, center console of BMW, camouflage rock, or any other encasement to find a big red phone. On the other end is the Minister of Defense, Prime Minister, or the President of the United States. That's cool and kind of ties into the agency brass, but I'm not quite sure that's what we're looking for this character, right? We have Devil behind the wheel. No one has ever been safer than your passengers, though they surely don't see it that way. Once per story, in a vehicle chase, take full creative liberty over how your pursuers or those you're chasing crash, roll, careen the vehicles into an explosive ball of flame. And in addition, obtain 1 relevant clue from the wreckage. I kind of love that, but let's go back to it, right? Because there could be some other things that I think are a little bit more pertinent for our concept. We've got Die Another Time. The chaos of the job leaves frenzied frays in your wake. Once per story, bring any willing character under your protection. You can take any damage dealt to them to yourself as long as they are next to you. 1 word of advice, give them a weapon. That is super fitting, actually, with the concept in terms of not so much the specifics of what we discussed, but the Bourne character. That is 100% like something that Jason Bourne would have had, right? In the books, anyway. Again, can't really speak. But he spends a third of the entire book series protecting his wife in fights, basically. So I think that's kind of a cool thing. Like, he can extend basically serve as a defense for another character. That's cool. The gun, Walther PPK, is it? Beretta, either way, you have a signature weapon, you know how to use it or not use it. You can smuggle it into otherwise forbidding space shuttles, guarded parties, volcanic layers with ease. Once per story, you can declare the weapon as a phony version that will jam, do a comical spray of confetti, or otherwise fail when fired. Sometimes it's better to allow the villain's thugs to disarm you. Again, very cool trope. Not sure that it's what we're looking for. We have licensed to garner licenses. The agency has assured you'll be a James of all trades, and now you always seem to have what it takes to get out of a jam. Once per story, you can swap your current trademark with any other operative trademark. Oof, that's cool. But again, probably not. License to kill. Sometimes, license to garner licenses is fitting for Bourne. Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, let's go through the rest of them, and maybe we'll circle back to it. License to kill. Sometimes collateral damage is required to save the world from a space laser made out of emerald stilettos. Once per story, you can stop any local authorities from pursuing you, no matter how hot your trail. That is also very Bourne-y. I just dipped out, and now you can't find me, Origin story. Your classical introduction is more than a formidable sequence of names and surnames, never in the correct order. It's a guise. Some go as far as to speculate whether your name is an agency-given call sign at all. And if you know the truth, get a +1 enhancement for introductory social situations, and once per story, roll an additional die when channeling your origin path. Narratively tie 1 character to your past for each odd number rolled. That might be cool, because that's something that could be played meta, right? The character doesn't realize the connections, which is also extremely Jason Bourne. Okay, signature drink. You know what you like, so you can easily catch when others give you something you don't. Once per story, you may decide a drink or bite of food is poisoned with a non-lethal sedative, then consume it willingly. You wake up in the appropriate prison. Over here, the guards carelessly spill critical information related to the mission. That's cool, but I don't think up the alley we're looking for. Ski Snapper. Improvised weapons seem to manifest around you, and you put them to excellent use. Once per story, you go from disarmed to armed. Even handcuffs are a viable weapon, as is the chair you're cuffed to, and you gain a +2 enhancement relating making weapons from unwieldy objects. That is, I mean, yes, wake up with microfiche in your hip and make up your own origin would be a cool. I think when this goes, when this unlocks the story path nexus, that is going to be a trope that I am going to add classified. That's 100% important. Yeah, I think Ski Snapper, honestly, is the way we're going to go. So the idea being that you can just turn literally anything into a weapon. And that is a very just important thing. And the last is working with the mob. When in a public location the director deems appropriate, such as a noisy hotel lobby, bustling casino, or oceanside pier packed with tourists, you may once per story disappear into a mob of people or vehicles, throwing the agent's enemies off your tracks. Also would work, but I think Ski Snapper, given the way that we're going with the character and the focus on like just being sort of like this walking death machine, I think Ski Snapper is probably. But you're right, license to garner licenses would be good, so would origin story. Any of those would be cool. But I think Ski Snapper is fun. But on the bright side, we get to pick one more trope from any of the other archetypes. So I'm just going to go through them real quick and see if something comes, like jumps out at me. Come Closer is very cool under the, this is a trope under Provocateur. Once per story, you can involuntarily bump into a nearby character, hug them, or otherwise enter their personal space, and swipe something from their body, such as a key card, identification lanyard, floppy disk, or other semi-critical necessity. That's neat. So I'm just going to mark that in my head. Unfortunate losses. Those who you meet tend to meet their maker soon after. As terrible as this is, sometimes a sacrifice is all you need to fulfill the mission requirements. Once per story, when your life or the mission is at stake, introduce a character to the scene, describe how they saved the day. Perhaps you reveal the precise moment when you're attacked that this character was acting as your double, or that they offered to detonate the bomb manually in your stead. They'll die afterward, but their sacrifice will not be in vain. That seems apropos. Master Disguise, though, too. Shit. Yeah, you're right. Unfortunate losses are Master of Disguise. Master Disguise is fake mustaches, ghillie suits, elaborate makeup transformations. You blend in any environment. Once per story, you can alter your appearance drastically with likeness. Fun of a biscuit. I think I'm going to flip a coin. Or roll a die. So evens will go with Master Disguise. Odds we will go with Unfortunate Losses. It's even. Master Disguise it is. See, and the one thing about a character, especially it also depends, right? Like, when are you meeting this character? This is early in this character's career, theoretically, right? So in the first Bourne book, though Jason Bourne has a bit of a different arc, as often you'll find in spy stories. I'm about to go on a weird tangent here. Jason Bourne is hyper competent pretty much from the first moment that you meet him, but he doesn't realize how hyper competent he is until several books into the series. So he knows he's good at stuff, but it doesn't really all come together until later. So there's a certain amount of maybe that would be a cool approach just for one time at a table, right? If you built these characters that instead of starting out where a starting character starts out, they start out at that super hyper level of competence. Because Jason Bourne would have like half of these tropes. If we were just going to like stat out Jason Bourne, there's a lot of tropes that. And if you haven't read the Bourne books, go read them. Holy shit! I'll make a deal. You go read the Bourne books. I'll watch the Bourne movies, and then we can get together sometime to talk about it. All right, so we have gotten our tropes. We have Die Another Time, Ski Snapper, and Master of Disguise. And I'm not going to look at tropes again, or I'm going to change my mind. So those are the tropes he's getting. And then the last thing is quips. You get to select, I believe it's 2 from, I'm just going to look so I don't talk out of my tail. Yep. So you get 1 quip from any of the decks and 2 quips. Okay. One quip that you choose from. Let's start at the start, shall we? Two quips from any of the 5 quip decks, either by looking at them or drawing blind. You could choose 2 from your archetype, but you can also quip from another one. Okay, cool. So it's just 2 that you select or draw blind from one specific deck, and then 1 that's selected from all the decks. And in the files that they have sent that you will get access to as a backer, yeah, I know, right? Lost his memory like literally in the middle of it. But yeah, if you back this on Kickstarter, you get access to the manuscript. One of the things that's nice about the manuscript is it has, and I would assume the final version as well once it comes out, you have all your tropes and quips and whatnot are in a nice numbered index. So it makes it really handy, or nice appendix, I should say. It makes it really handy for generating them randomly, because you just need to use random number generators. So I think just to keep things nice and simple, we will draw 2 from the operative, 1 from the mixed deck, using a handy dandy number generator. So give me just a moment. Bring up our fancy little dice roller. There's a virtual dice roller at calculator.net that is super cool and very handy in these situations, because you can define the number of dice you need to roll and the number of sides on the dice you need to roll. So we're going to roll 2 30-sided dice. We got a 5 and a 1. So going over to our appendix. 5 is touch a hair on my friend's head and you'll receive a rather unflattering set of piercings. Sounds like something Jason Bourne would say. And we're going to just, because the quips can be long, we're going to put that on 2 lines so we can read it. And then 1 was the second one, which was, have you considered a change of career? And then we have our mix, so we're going to roll a d6. And if we come up with a... Yeah, we're just going to roll a d6. If we come up with a 6, I'll re-roll it. We got a 2. All right. So we're drawing from deck 2. Deck 2 is going to be the detective quips. We'll roll 1d30. See what that does. That gives us don't touch anything. which is also something I think Jason Bourne has said on occasion or two. Excellent. So we have now achieved our quips, our tropes. We've got the relationship numbers broken out. We have our connections, our trademarks. Oh, right. I do need to note that's organization. All right. Aspirations are handled. Everything except for the name. So because I like to be cute when I'm naming characters, let's just, and this may not be the name that shows up in the actual play. Who knows? You never know. But because I want to be a smart ass, I'm just going to call them... do you think Jeremy Damon or Matt Renner? Which one is a better name? Jeremy Damon or Matt Renner? I'll give Chad a minute to let me know what they think there. If you have an opinion. If you don't have an opinion, that's fine too. Because it may very well change by the time we get into the characters. Hands for the actual play. That is running on Monday, I believe it's 6 p.m. Eastern at the Onyx Path. And promises to be a good time, as it is being run by Gilbert, who is the story guide of Scion Godsend. He's just a lot of fun. Puts together a really fun game. So looking forward to seeing his classified actual play. Matt Renner it is. Let's do it. All right, done. We will save that character sheet, and I will send it along to the folks that are going to be in the actual play, along with the rest that I'll be cranking out off camera here in a little bit. So yeah, that is making a character for They Came From Classified. And as you can see, as we're discussing these things and like, oh, this would be good, this would be good. There are so many, like all the They Came From games, there are so many powerful tools and tidbits that really drive home the setting and really make this pop. And really set aside as kind of a spy espionage thing. So if that's the type of game that you're into, or the types of movies you like, maybe you're not into spy games. Maybe you've never played a super spy story, right? But if you like the movies, you like the books, I think They Came From Classified is a great way to bring that experience to the table in a way that's maybe more just more fun than like just doing like a vanilla super spy scenario, right? But having said that, though, you can lean into these tropes and go a little bit beyond the borders of what you might originally think of as spy. You could get into like a cyberpunky, Shadowrunny type of story with this system. You could get into things where you're doing more, high action, snakes on a plane, on a boat, in a tall building. There's a lot of different ways you can parse this out and have a lot of fun with it. So I definitely, playing as bad guys, absolutely, very possible, very fun. If you wanted to create, your Dr. Evil and his henchmen, that could be super cool. There's just so many different options, and different ways to sort of tackle these ideas. The other thing that's neat about the They Came From lines is each line is designed as a distinct type of cinema and a distinct set of characteristics. But because of the way that the paths are constructed and the way that the tropes and the quips and the trademarks are all constructed, it's infinitely interchangeable. So, if you want to do a horror game that you're running, They Came From Beyond the Grave is sort of your main focus on there. But you want to have like a Loomis type character from Halloween, you could grab the detective from They Came From Classified and port it over directly with no need to do any like work or any resetting of things. You don't need to rebalance anything. It's just, okay, I'm playing a detective. One concept that I've kicked around that might be fun that I may very well do for like a actual play series would be They Came From UHF, where each of the players would take one archetype from one of the They Came From games. And this would be like a group that gets bopped around different types of media. Like they wind up in different episodes of different TV shows, almost like a super meta sliders, right? So you'd have like the Provocateur from They Came From, an Inhuman from Cyclops' Cave, an Everyman from They Came From Beneath the Sea, and like the Dupe from They Came From the Grave. And this group is sort of popping around the broadcasting multiverse, having bizarre adventures in different types of stories. Like that type of stuff. You can get the combinations are endless. The creativity is endless. Stay tuned. Yes, absolutely. Stay tuned would be like perfect for that sort of a game, right? Absolutely. I think so. The things you can do are just mind-boggling. So I would highly recommend, if you've not yet done so, head over to the Kickstarter for the double feature, which is currently up right now. We are, like I said, just a little bit shy of $700 from unlocking the next stretch goal, which will be the director's screen for They Came From Classified, full of excellent tools that you can use, just to speed along your running of the game. Quick reference, good stuff like that. And once that's unlocked, then hopefully people will pick those up. We did unlock already the Cyclops' Cave screen, which I need to add to my pledge pretty soon as well. But I really hope that you go check it out. If you back it for as little as $5, you can get access to the manuscript for both games, and then look them over, look through it, look at these. That's my challenge to you. If you've not checked it out yet, I challenge you, go throw $5 at it. Look at these manuscripts and make up your mind. You have a week to look through them, decide if they look fun to you. If they don't look fun to you, cancel your pledge, right? I am confident that if you spend the $5 and you look at these manuscripts, you will want these games. You will up your pledge. You will get those hardcovers. You will get those screens because they are so freaking amazing. Unless you hate fantasy or spy movies or fun, I think you're really going to love what you see. And again, if you back for $5, you don't like it, you can back out before the Kickstarter ends, and you're out nothing, and you still get a playable manuscript. So I mean, like, what's the risk, right? So definitely check it out. Definitely tell your friends. I hope you've enjoyed this process of creating a character together. I have enjoyed very much the opportunity, and I'm very thankful for those of you who've popped in and said hello. It's always nice to run into somebody else who's into Jason Bourne, because again, that's probably my favorite spy story. I will be back tonight over at the Onyx Path Twitch. We'll be running Dead Man's Rust. Things are starting to heat up. We're like cresting into the third act at this point. You don't want to miss that. We play on the first, third, and fifth Wednesday of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern. So we will be playing this week and then right away again next week. So I'm going to do my best to put in a nice, hefty nail biter of a cliffhanger if I can tonight. So tune in, hop by, tell your friends, do the same. Go check out the Kickstarter and tell your friends to do the same. If you've not yet gotten your shots, do so. CDC, I think, just approved anybody who's over 50 can get a 4th shot. So go do that. And we will talk to you more soon. Take care of yourselves and each other.